And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I want this to be interactive. So just a
Yes.
shout out to everybody. Please make this interactive. It's better for everybody if we do ask questions and I don't have pre-prepared remarks because this is such a passionate topic for me that I can just talk about it ad nauseum. So if you do have questions, please interject them so that it can be that dialogue.
Wonderful. Well, I do want to give you an introduction, Attorney Tina Gray. So, Tina is committed to her clients and the integrity of the law. Licensed in Indiana in 1996, Ms. Gray began her legal career clerking for the Honorable Thomas G. Fisher in the Indiana Tax Court, and then clerked for the Honorable Robert H. Cleland in the Eastern District of Michigan. Attorney Gray has litigated cases successfully for business and individual clients in the areas of real property disputes, business litigation, construction law, family law, and probate administration. Attorney Gray has maintained a certificate in probate and estate planning since 2005 through the Institute of Continuing Legal Education. Ms. Gray currently serves as a member of the State Bar Committee on Professional Ethics as well as the Committee on Professionalism and Civility. And Ms. Gray is a resident of Williamston, where she has raised 4 children, serves her community, and established a law firm. Attorney Gray advocates for personal life work balance and pursues fitness, homesteading, and continued learning. Attorney Gray's passion for service to others and integrity is applied throughout her professional and personal endeavors. I am so happy to welcome you back. We had the pleasure of hearing from you last spring, speaking about your practice, but with the world that we are in right now, and so many things in the legal world with regard to legal ethics and civility. It just really felt that this was a relevant topic. Again, because of your exposures and experiences with the committees. And so the conversation that we had the other day was really very enlightening to me. And I'm so excited for you to share that with our students today. So thank you and welcome.
And thanks everybody for being here. I know that it's an extra event to put on your calendar, but I think it's beneficial not only to collect as a group, but just to get different perspectives. So I'll start with the state bar committees because I think a lot of times people, even practicing attorneys, don't really appreciate what some of the state bar committees do. So in Michigan, as an attorney, you need to be a member of the state bar. It's your choice whether you want to participate in any of the state bar sections. I do too. I do the professionalism opinions. And what that committee does is there is an ethics hotline. People can call into the ethics hotline and ask questions and get assistance from the state bar employees, the staff that's there at the state bar. And a lot of times people write into the ethics committee because they have questions that they would like answered. We don't answer questions in terms of what you should be. I mean, we're trying to opine about ethics, not to give you legal advice. So we always steer away from giving anybody legal advice, but we do interpret the rules of ethics, the canon of ethics, and we issue written opinions. So that's really the bulk of what that committee does is talk about the issues that come in and the issues that need to be addressed, whether it's because of a volume of seeing the same questions come through the hotline or just knowing what is happening with the courts and getting feedback from the judiciary on some of the issues that need to be addressed. But we issue those ethics opinions. So it's wonderful to be able to work as a full committee and also to work within subgroups of that committee to grapple with ethical rules, ethical issues, and how to address those, how to navigate those, and then to put out some FAQs or some instructions or opinions so that the entire bar can benefit from them. So that's one committee on professional ethics. And the other one is professionalism and civility. Our profession we're self-regulating and we are holding ourselves up to a higher level because of the call to be an attorney. And so professionalism civility started as a summit in 2008, just to sort of talk about it. We were all down at the Hall of Justice in sort of a symposium type thing. And from that symposium or seminar, that we went into work groups and just looking at the issue and whether the issue needed to be addressed and how it needed to be addressed. And from there, we formed the committee that is now a permanent part of the state bar committees and sections. And professionalism and civility is doing a lot of speaking and a lot of raising awareness. But we also put together some points that we presented to the Michigan Supreme Court that is now part of an administrative order on professionalism and civility that now applies to all attorneys. So that's a very nice reminder for attorneys, and it's also a very nice point of reference for the legal community. So that's the state bar work that I do, and it is so fulfilling to give back. If you believe in the self-regulation of our profession, I really want to be a part of that conversation and what leads to keeping our profession a profession and not just a job. I don't want the practice of law to just be a business. I want it to be a profession with standards. So that is the work that I do on the state bar. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So I think what I'll do is identify some of the links to the canon of ethics, and I'll put those in the chat and then share those with everyone as well. I think that would be something that would people would, benefit from reading and knowing where to find that information.
Yeah, and the administrative order, I like to point everybody to that as well. So we'll make sure that that's in the link and people can have that afterwards because I think even practicing attorneys don't know very much about it. But
Mhm.
work with the state bar, everybody who is working with the state bar is either appointed or elected. And so it is something that attorneys are choosing to be involved in. And there is a bit of a selection process. I think we get more applicants than we have spots, but it is very important to serve. And there are term limits as well. So that is, and then ethics, how does that play out? This is for paralegals and staff. So how do these ethics, the attorney's ethics, how does that filter down or apply to paralegals and your staff? And that's a very important thing. As the attorney, I have to make sure that my staff is not crossing over any ethical boundaries. And that's always the attorney's responsibility. I can't emphasize that enough. As much as you want your staff to be aware of it, attorneys cannot put it onto their staff that is not a licensed attorney, that is their responsibility to follow the attorney's ethical canons. So you really want to make sure that in your work environment, you have attorneys that are aware of their legal ethics and are making sure that their staff stay within because we are overseeing. Part of our canons is that we have to oversee our staff and we have to be accountable for what they are doing. So working in an environment where you have a very strong ethical focus, I think would be a valuable thing for me anytime that I look at legal organizations or law firms or even government positions. You want to know who is the person that's kind of responsible for legal ethics. If I have a question, who am I going to? Do I just report to my particular supervisor, or do we have somebody within our organization that has specifically been given the job of compliance or legal ethics or conflicts? Sometimes they call them conflicts attorneys. And so that's something that I've seen in the legal industry that didn't used to be a full-time position that now with the bigger firms, that's its own job. Being an ethics attorney or a conflicts attorney is a isolated role within large firms now. And so I think that's a good thing that there's a focus on that. And that would be important to, as you look at employers and look at different opportunities, I think making sure that you choose an employer that is addressing ethics in an open, transparent way would be an important, valuable thing to watch for in that interview process. So, or as you start a job evaluating your job satisfaction, who is addressing those ethics? One of the things that Sarah and I talked about when we were preparing for today is, hey, if I have a question about ethics, or if I think something isn't right, if my sense is that somebody's doing something that runs afoul of the rules, what do I do with that information? Who do I go to? And the Attorney Grievance Commission is the end recipient of anybody's questions or concerns with regard to licensed attorneys. So the Attorney Grievance Commission is totally separate from the state bar, and it's its own entity, and it is there to regulate attorneys and to discipline attorneys if necessary, and to start the procedures for removing attorneys' license if necessary. So if somebody has an issue with any licensed attorney, you go to the Attorney Grievance Commission. And as we were saying, if you see it, you say it, because it's really not up to any particular person who's reporting something to decide what's going to happen with that report. If the report is unfounded and it doesn't even touch on a legal ethics rule, then the Attorney Grievance Commission will just tell you, yeah, that's not an issue for our concern. If it does, then maybe they'll look at it and see if it has any basis or not. They do have an investigative arm. So if the Attorney Grievance Commission needs to look into if somebody has made a report and they need to investigate it, they will do that. They have an investigative arm. And then they will take the necessary steps. So I always want to encourage attorneys and anyone else in the public, whether they're a client or a staff member, if you see something that you think might be unethical, just report it, because we are a self-regulating profession. And that's how we keep the profession at a standard, at a level that we want it to be, because we don't want our legal profession and the rule of law to be eroded. So that is what you do with your thoughts on, I wonder if that's right. Yeah, as you don't have to decide for yourself. You can just report it. And so that's what I would encourage people to do, is don't try to interpret for yourself if that's right or wrong. It's no different than calling the police because you think a crime has occurred. They'll decide if it did or didn't, and the prosecuting attorney will decide what to do with the detective's report. But if you see something, it's best to just call it in.
Yes, thank you. And again, that was really the sort of the crux of what brought us together to bring this presentation today, is the fact that the continued rule of law and maintaining the high standards really comes down to each of us individually, right? And so just we really work hard in this program to instill those values, and the importance of us as paralegals providing that support to attorneys, that we are held to the same standards regardless of the fact that we're not licensed, by the state. And then that sort of morphed into our discussion on the unauthorized practice of law, as well as the paralegal limited licensing that is coming down the road. So would you be able to speak a little bit more about that unauthorized practice of law, and then we can move on to the second topic, but what that looks like in the realm of ethics, legal ethics, and maintaining the standards?
So when I clerked for a federal judge, it wasn't as much when I was at the Indiana tax court on the state level, but definitely when I clerked on the federal level, we as the judge's lawyers, I mean, that's what the law clerks are. We are the legal counsel that is supposed to help support the judge. And we were not allowed to tell attorneys things when attorneys called and wanted to speak to the law clerks. We were not allowed to give out information. We were not allowed to give our opinions, or really, I mean, we knew not to basically speak officially, because it was always going to come back to the judge. It was always going to come back to, well, your staff said, well, your chambers told me, and we didn't want any of that. So we learned to listen. We have two ears, and we listened, and we did not use our mouths. Well, outside of the chambers, and especially not with other attorneys or, jury members, or, I mean, we just didn't. For those 2 years, other than talking among ourselves and inside chambers, we didn't speak to, because we didn't want to bind the judge or bind our court. And that's the same rule in my law practice. That's the rule I have for my staff, because I don't want them to run afoul of something not knowing that they have. So they basically are trained. You may listen, you may take in information, but unless I have specifically given you, and in my office, probably an email, so it's probably going to be written, like, you may do this, you may say this. If there's not a clear direction, then my staff doesn't let go of information. My staff definitely doesn't give legal advice, and my staff doesn't release documents. Like if somebody says, hey, can I pick up my original estate planning documents? Well, they have to be ready to go. They have to be complete. They have to be scanned. I don't want you picking them up if we're not done with them. So even something as simple of, well, can I get my work product? Can I get, my finished stuff? Well, maybe, maybe not. That's really my decision, more than putting it on my staff and making my staff responsible for knowing whether something should go out the door or not. Same thing with releasing settlement funds. Oh, well, they said I could cut this check. Okay, well, that's probably not your job. If I know that it's ready to go, then we'll cut the check and it'll be ready for pickup. If things are ready for pickup, that's great. But I never put on my staff the responsibility of deciding what should go out the door, whether it is a tangible thing or a piece of information or, anything about the case. It's so tempting to say, oh, I know Miss Gray's been working on that. And, I know she's talked to the other attorney, and I think she was on the phone with the court too. You know, I don't want my staff to be the one trying to alert the client on the status of things because I don't want it to run afoul in unauthorized practice of law because you can end up giving advice not realizing that you are. Now, that being said, it is so important to realize how valuable paralegals are and how much they can do. I think I worked as a paralegal before I went to law school. I loved working as a paralegal. I could do so much stuff. I could prep stuff. I could work with the attorney. I understood so much about what was going on, but I wasn't at the end of the day responsible. I could do all that work. I could be so proud of what I was doing. I could even sit down with the client and do intakes and get information and prep them for deposition by basically walking them through questions and that sort of thing. I felt so integral to the work that we were doing, but I knew I wasn't at the end of the day responsible. That was the attorney's job. And that's how we should feel as paralegals. We should feel like we can do all this work to support and prepare and ramp everything up, but then we get the privilege of stepping back and saying, "Not my problem. You can, you get to be responsible for this," or the attorney gets to delegate and direct. And I think that is a wonderful symbiotic relationship where you really get to work as a team, kind of like two horses, with a yoke in between them working the field. You're working together. There's not a lead and a follow. It is a true team, a bound team together, and that is a wonderful thing. So I don't think that the paralegal is a limiting role at all. I think it's a very expansive role and it has a ton of responsibility, but it shouldn't necessarily be, it should fall short of giving the legal advice. And that's where the line of demarcation is. At this point, now, one of the things the state bar is doing and has been talking about a lot, and other states are looking at is, hey, are we going to have a interim? Are we going to have, this category of somebody that's able to give legal work to the public at a reduced cost, at a limited, you can only do these things, not those things. Are we going to carve out a space for non-lawyers to service legal needs of the public? And that's really the debate right now. Is there an opportunity for non-licensed lawyers to provide some sort of limited or defined and well needed legal services under a different category? And that's something that's being talked about. Sarah and shared that she's very involved with that in the state bar. That's something that's talked about on the state bar level a lot, but it's not here yet. The pilot program's not even here yet. So it's definitely not something that we can go out and do today or tomorrow, but it is on the horizon, and I do think it's something that will probably come to pass and be part of our legal system. I just can't say when, and I can't say what that will look like. But I think that it is coming. So if that's something that you're personally interested in, then be a part of that discussion now. Get involved. I'm sure students can get involved. I'm sure there's ways in which anybody can start voicing their opinion and interest and activation on that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And you pointed that out very well that we're not there yet. And I think that there's a lot of enthusiasm, obviously. But one of the key factors that has been discussed in the Access to Justice committees really focuses again on this exact topic of what the role and responsibility of paralegals will be with regard to providing legal advice and what protections do we have as paralegals, right? In the state of Michigan, attorneys are not required to maintain insurance, right? Liability or malpractice insurance. And, how is that going to affect us as paralegals if we are out there with our little shingle and we're handling our one area of law that we've been certified and in limited licensing on? What protections are there if mistakes are made, right? So those are some of the areas as well that are being discussed along with all the other factors of the limited licensing. It's very exciting, but it's we need to be very cautious with it moving forward.
But at the same token, there's a lot of self-help packets out there. The
Mhm.
probate court is full of self-help packets. The family law arena is full of self-help packets. Here, for a fee, you can buy from the clerk's office this packet and go do it yourself. But that is when you do that to the public, A, they don't necessarily do a good job of doing it themselves. And then B, it's so much harder for the court because when we prepare things for the court, we know what the court needs and we can get it all to them. And of course, if we have this limited licensing, the same thing. As the paralegal, the limited license legal provider, you can say, I know everything that needs to be put in this information and presented to the court. I know what I need to attach. The public, every time people come and do it themselves and then say, yeah, I got stuck. Now I need your help because everything I did got rejected, and it bogs down the courts. It's not good for the court. Hand up, what do we have?
Oh, hey, Tina, thanks. So, I'm currently working as a notary, and they drill in, and you cannot give legal advice. You cannot give legal advice over and over again. And I do a lot of power of attorneys, a lot of last will and testaments. I have people call me and say, "I need my will. Can you give me a document?" And I say, "No, I can't do that." And it's so hard because you want to be so helpful, and that's what I'm kind of glad I had this experience before becoming a paralegal because it's such a slippery slope, I think. Like you just really want to help people, but you have to understand where the line is. And so I'm early in the program, so I'm sure when I take legal ethics, we'll discuss these things. But I'm so glad that you raised that because it can just be, I'm the kind of person I just want to help people and but I just can't do everything I want to do.
Right. And that's very similar to I see people draft their own wills, and there's all sorts of software out there that allows you to get on the software, pay a fee, and navigate their software and answer their questions, and then they'll spit out a document, and there's your will. Well, every time I see those documents, because they come into my office for estate administration after somebody's passed away. They come into my office because they say, hey, I created this and I'm just wondering if this is right. And as we go through things, it is what you're missing is to interact with somebody who knows all the information you need and that can filter what you're telling me and ask the appropriate questions to pull out from you all the information that's necessary to give you a good estate plan. It's amazing to me what those helpful things, I mean, is that better than nothing? Maybe. I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're married and you have natural children that are the heirs and the people that you want to pass it to, the rules of intestate succession will probably cover you. But if you've got a blended family, if you've got, step kids that you consider your kids, but they're not biologically yours, the rules of intestate succession won't cover you at all. And what you think might happen and what the law says happens is two different things. And then people get it all mixed up, what's a probate asset and what's not. And so what you think is going to happen, a lot of times you need somebody to explain to you, hey, if this is what you have planned, this is what your document's going to do for you. And so often people say, oh, that's not what I intended. Because it's not what they don't put down anything wrong. It's all the things they don't know that they don't account for. And sorry, I'm not a car person. My kids are car people. I'm not a car person. So I definitely love my mechanic. And I have my mechanic change my oil, not because I couldn't do it. Of course I could. But when that oil comes out and I look at that oil, I can't derive anything from it. If there's metal shavings in it, I won't notice. If there's some sort of water or the wrong smell, or there's so much more to changing your oil that tells you about how your engine's functioning. And that's what my mechanic does for me. And I don't know that. Those are the things that he knows that I don't know, or she knows that I don't know. And that's how I feel in my own profession, is that as a lawyer, I know a lot more and I can bring a lot of benefit to getting somebody's estate plan done right, and giving them the appropriate advice. Real property is another area. I don't even get me started on that because people always think, well, I thought we owned the property this way. Well, I thought it meant this was going to happen. And we end up in very serious litigation that is very time consuming and frustrating for families because what they thought was not what they did. And the law is pretty clear. So people make a mess.
that mechanic
Thank you.
analogy is fantastic, and it applies directly to legal AI, right? It's the same thing. Everyone says, "Oh, it's going to take over our job." No, it isn't, right? But the way your mechanic is your service, the same way that legal AI is a tool. I love that analogy of not knowing what, what the oil's supposed to look like or smell like. It's the same thing when you drop it into to one of the programs, and what comes back out, to be able to identify what's missing or
Mhm.
incorrect. So yeah, I'm going to store that one away and credit you for that.
Well, I'll give you another example. Because AI is wonderful, and I don't like open AI for like I'm going to get on Google and use AI, but I love AI within. I use Westlaw, so I love AI within Thomson Reuters and Westlaw because it is a closed law library. It has all the books I need. It has all the cases. It has all the secondary materials, and that is a closed room. And when you put AI out in that room, it brings back some really interesting things. Some things are spot on, and some things are really good food for thought. And here's my example from real life. So I have dogs, and one of my dogs is a beagle, and so digs in the yard. Brings me the most interesting things to the front porch that I had no idea were in my yard. And then I get to consider, I wonder where this came from. So one time, an entire deer leg showed up on the front porch. No deer, just the leg. So, again, did I know that was in my yard? No, I did not. Very interesting thing to bring to my attention, which raised other questions. And if you take that analogy in the legal field, sometimes law students, before AI, law students used to do this for me. They didn't know enough about the area of the law to filter things out, so they would just bring you very interesting deer legs, and you're like, huh, okay. And then you got to see if you could use that legal theory or use that application. And AI does the same thing. So for me, looking at AI is a wonderful benefit and a wonderful tool, but it's, in my opinion, actually harming the opportunities for young attorneys, because young attorneys used to do a ton of research and a ton of shepherdizing and a ton of just putting, drafts and bare bones together. Literally, AI does that now. The job that young first year associate or law student used to have is literally done by Westlaw now, and pretty efficiently. I can take my brief as a PDF and upload it to Westlaw. It shepherdizes it. It recommends other cases. It tells me if my citations are right, tells me if my quotes are right, and it does it within 15 minutes.
That
So,
still needs to be verified though, right? I mean, it's a trust but verify situation. So even in the closed systems, there's always the margin. But yeah.
yes.
Oh, great.
But
So now we have oil and deer legs. I love it.
well, analogies make things stick.
Yes.
So, but the unauthorized practice of the law, I think that sometimes staff is put in that position, and I've seen it. I've seen this example where staff is being asked, "Hey, can you take care of this?" Or "I got called out to something. Can you just do this?" So out of convenience, and that's where you step over the line. You know not to do it, but then you're trying to be helpful, and so you step over the line because you're trying to help. You have your heart in the right place, and it seems like just right this one time. I'm not going to do this all the time, just this one time, and that one time typically ends up being the problem that goes south and then causes a big problem. So I just think it's important from day one to just know, I'm not going to cross that line. And if you're trying to help people, the best help you can do is to have your resources available. And that's one of the biggest things that people come to attorneys for, to be a resource. So when people come to me, if I can't help their situation, I need to be ready to put them in the hands of an organization or another attorney that can. I don't do everything. I send people to bankruptcy. I send people to criminal. Now I send all my family law cases out. I send people to the state bar. I'll send people to patent attorneys. I mean, I don't do everything. There's no attorney can do everything anymore. There's too many large areas of practice that are very unique. But I need to have in my wheelhouse all of those people and relationships so that I know that I'm sending them to a good person that can really take care of their issues. So, same thing with a paralegal. When I worked as a paralegal, knowing how to be a resource and knowing how to get the information so I could get it to the attorney so the attorney could provide the assistance. Or, knowing all the information that had to be on that form so that I could get it from that client and then get the form and the information to the attorney so that everything could be done. That's really the huge value is all the things that you can't necessarily do it and draft it, but you can get all the information so that the drafting of it is seamless because you know all the inputs that have to be present. True value.
Absolutely. Were there any other comments or questions? We have covered a fabulous range. All right.
So one of the other things that, is everybody's, you're in school, so or you might be a recent alum, and so you're early in your career. And so when you're early in your career, it can be easy to be influenced by somebody and to have, especially, a senior attorney or an established attorney, try to tell you that certain things, well, oh, that doesn't matter. That's not really important. In the real world, we don't worry about that. That's your schooling or your training, but that's not how it's really done. And to downplay the value of ethics. And so trust your training, trust what you're learning in this program, trust what your ethics are teaching you and what your role is, and what the limits of that role are, because there are unfortunately too many attorneys that are focused, on other objectives than just making sure that they're being fully ethical and fully professional. And so that is something that we're addressing in some of the work with the committees that I'm on, and we see it and we're addressing it. And that's why even professionalism and civility exists as a section of the state bar, is because this is a topic that needs to be addressed. And it's one of the other issues talking about mental health is a lot of things within the state bar. We realize that when people are not behaving well, when attorneys are not doing their best, there's something going on. Mental health is a huge issue. We have LJAP and addiction support, but just the stress, we have a huge burnout rate in our industry. There's a lot of attorneys that don't stay in the practice. So that is when you see people behaving on not their best day, my first go-to is, hey, how are you? What's going on? What support might you need? And just trying to be part of the profession that lifts them up instead of being the profession that attacks them and realizes, condemns them. Sometimes people in their behavior are raising their hands and just want to be recognized for the help that they need in whatever arena it is. Maybe it's just stress management. Maybe there is an addiction. Maybe there's a true mental health crisis, but attorneys need to be able to get help for what they have going on. And we need to take a very proactive role in managing our own stress. If we're a mess and a train wreck, we can't really help our clients very effectively or efficiently. And that's where problems start happening. So as an attorney, I'm very mindful of that work-life balance and that stress management and making sure that I have my house in order so that I can help other people with their issues.
Absolutely.
It's a work in progress.
So we all are. We all are. But I appreciate that you always start with the, what do you need? How can I help? As opposed to, this was a mistake or this was wrong or your reaction was inappropriate. So yeah, that's I think if we can start from lead from a place of compassion and lead from a place of empathy. You mentioned even earlier in today's presentation about service, right? I mean that's sort of the common thread and theme of people who are drawn to the paralegal profession in particular, is our call to service, right? We're doers. We're the preparers, the supporters, and so I think maintaining that leading with empathy is so relevant to maintaining success and the balance, right? I mean, this is a profession where many of us are meeting people on their worst day, right? Our clients are coming in on their worst day. Or, even in my insurance defense world, okay, it's a car accident, but it's litigation. I don't know, I do 50 discovery responses every hour. This is the one time that someone has been sued. And what does that mean? My name is on a complaint. My name is in the court, and so making sure that at all levels, from clients all through the folks that we work with, right? I mean, it's a high stress, regardless of the practice area, because the mistakes could have detrimental reactions, or to our clients in probate, or in litigation, or in criminal, or right. It's well, the group of us that went to the 43rd District Court the other week and watched criminal sentencing day for a few hours. Watched two people be handcuffed and taken off to jail for, one was a drunk driving violation, and the other was a probation violation. But still, right? I said to the paralegals at the lunch, I said, I've made monumental mistakes in my career, right? And I will probably make more. Not one time did my mistake cause someone to go to jail. Like that's hard to take home with you at the end of the day. And so it has that ripple effect throughout the firm, where if the attorney is stressed and yelling, and then the paralegal is being yelled at, and then now the receptionist is being yelled at. So maintaining that level, as you said, of leading with empathy and compassion, goes a long way to just helping all of us get through a very, very stressful career.
Yes. And I would like our profession to be one in which nobody has to work in an environment where there's yelling or stress, or nobody got lunch, or everybody's hangry. I mean, that's how is that productive? How is
Right.
that really helping anybody? And so there are, and I do want to say that, I mean, the idea that, well, this is how it is. This is how the legal industry is. Full stop. This is not how the legal industry needs to be. It is not that way everywhere. There are some great places to work where people take care of themselves, they take care of their clients, and they realize their limits. They realize their personal limits, they realize their staff's limits, and they realize the breaking point of their clients too. And whether in any field, I can't think of any area, even you would say, oh, well, isn't probate and estate planning, you're doing people's wills and trust, isn't that, just a happy place? Well, no, not always.
Mhm.
Sometimes people are doing that work because they're facing an immediate end of life issue and it's an emergency and they're trying to get their stuff done and they're dealing with the grief of, hey, I'm not probably going to be here soon. For a lot of people, just the idea, they're young, they're healthy, but just the idea that they may not be there and the thought of planning for their own demise is just an overwhelming, it's deer in the headlights. They shut down. They're like, I can't do this. So it's very emotional. I can't think of anything. People are coming to attorneys because they need help with something. And typically it is. And sometimes you're finding people on their worst day, but also sometimes it's not just that you're finding people on their worst day. Sometimes you're finding people that because they've had that car accident, they're on drugs. They're trying to heal. You're I was talking to a paralegal that does nothing but personal injury, and she said, every client I talk to is on drugs because they've all just been severely injured. That's why
Sure.
they have a personal injury case. And they're trying to physically recover at the same time that they're trying to participate in a lawsuit to right the wrong that happened to them. It can be a huge undertaking. So a lot of compassion, a lot of understanding, and a lot of support. The paralegals are supporting the attorneys, and the attorneys are supporting the paralegals. It is an equally yoked, we're working together relationship. I can't model that enough. It's not one over the other. It is tied together, woven together, and working as a team. That's really the way it should be.
Yeah, that symbiosis, absolutely.
Yes, 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 yes. Right.
Well, this was wonderful, as I knew it would be. Thank you so much for your time. I know you have all the committees that you've listed and your professional career that you've taken time from. So I just please accept my gratitude for your time. I'm sure I will be inviting you back again, and in the future as we just continue to find ways that you can impart all of your years of learning in the profession. You've been so gracious to even post positions in your office. I realize you're a little outside of our little Oakland County world, but as our program continues to grow and expand, those connections are just so great to have outside of Oakland County as well. So thank you for entrusting us with those postings as well. And I look forward to continuing our working relationship.
Likewise. And everybody out there, find mentors. Raise your hand, ask questions, find people. If you're attracted to somebody like, oh, I'm curious about what you're doing. That area looks interesting. I heard you argue in court. I'd like to hang out with you more. Ask people, can I shadow you for a day? Do you have time for a lunch? Can you meet me for coffee? If I think being especially proactive, in trying to connect yourself with people and just see what it is that is interesting for you. The field of law is huge. And there's so many different types of people that practice law, and there's so many different areas of the law. So this is your time as students to really go try different things and see what is the best fit for you, because there are differences. So I encourage everybody to, get out there and ask your questions and hang out with attorneys and go do job shadows, go do follow, ask to sit in court like you did the other day. You could learn a lot. You could learn a lot about what you like and what you don't like, and do the same thing with attorneys. I have people shadow me all the time, from people that are thinking of going to law school to people that are just thinking of pursuing a legal career, and most people are going to welcome that.
Fantastic.
So can I ask another quick question, Tina, that you mentioned? I was about to say, I thought I knew what all the kinds of law were, just from my pride, just for being my age, and then I saw that you have expertise in construction law,
Mhm.
which I hadn't heard of. Can you tell me just a little bit about that?
So there's a particular statute. There used to be several, but there's the Construction Lien Act. And so the Mechanics Lien Act is older than the Construction Lien Act. So we know that if you take your car and you go have your car worked on, the mechanic has the right to keep your car if you don't pay for it, right? They can
Right.
lock your car into their shop and say, no, you owe the bill and I get to keep your car until you pay your bill. And that might seem a little odd because, well, that's my car. I own it. So how come I can't get my car back? Well, because I just fixed your transmission and you owe me money. And until you pay for your transmission, I keep your car. That's the
Mhm.
Mechanics Lien Act. That is the same law that morphed into the Construction Lien Act, which says, hey, I came to your house and I put, a roof on your house, right? So you have to pay for that roof. Well, if you don't pay for that roof, it's not like I mean, how do I protect myself? Like, how do I get paid for that roof if you refuse to pay me? Well, the Construction Lien Act says, I'll let you put a lien on that house, just like a mortgage is a lien on your house. I'll let you put an encumbrance on somebody's house for the value of the improvement to that person's house so that you'll get paid. Because if we didn't protect mechanics, nobody would work on cars. Why would I work on your car? I'm just going to work on your car, put parts in it, and then everybody's going to drive off and say thank you and not pay the bill.
Yeah.
So our society is interested in public policy of having mechanics paid. Our society is also interested in the public policy of seeing the tradespeople paid for the work that they do to property, because you can't take it with you. I had a client that poured concrete, and they poured a beautiful driveway. It was thousands and thousands of dollars worth of concrete, and then they didn't get paid.
Mm.
And they were wondering what they could do. Can I go wreck the concrete? Can I go take it back? Like what do I do? Nope, you've now poured it. It's there. And unfortunately, you can't go on their property and trespass and create physical damage to their property. They now own it. All you can do is lien their house and then use the lien laws and what do the lien laws do? It's an encumbrance on your house. And if you don't pay it and you file a foreclosure action, then you can actually force the sale of that house to pay the contractor for work they provided. So it's a very important law. It's kind of a law that's only used by the trades. And just like the mechanics lien law is only used by mechanics, but it is protecting the public interest of creating a safe space for people to be in the trades, knowing that the law has their back and they'll get paid for the work they do.
Is the lien on the title of the house then, like it is on a car?
Yeah, yes. Yep.
Interesting. My husband's in construction, and so I saw that and I thought, I wonder what that is. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
And there used to be a Builders Trust Fund Act, so all licensed builders used to pay into a Builders Trust Fund Act, but that has been abolished and dissolved.
Hmm.
So that used to when I've been doing this for long enough that I've even seen the law dramatically change. But you used to be able to sometimes builders would run off and you would have paid the builder and the builder ran off and didn't do your work. So then you could go to the state and get your money back basically from this Builders Trust Fund Act, but that doesn't exist anymore. So the laws are a little different there.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that brings up another thing, and I know we're at the end here, but as you're going through and starting out your careers, you're looking at the types of law you want to practice, and you're looking at the types of environments you want to practice within, the types of law firms. But also, you need to follow your passions. I mean, I look at my own journey through the types of law and I love construction. I love the trades. That group of people just really speaks to me, and I get them. I can speak their language. I know what an RO is. I know what the work is involved, and I know what the pitfalls are, and I know that they're not paper people. So you need to make their life easier. That passion is what led me into that area of the law, and that need, people that I enjoyed interacting with and assisting led me to become sort of an expert in that area. And I think that's what happens with a lot of us, is that we find things that we're passionate about, things that we like in our own lives, and that leads us to become experts in that area. And that drives our careers in a certain direction.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, if there is nothing else, again, thank you, Tina, for your time today. Always a pleasure. I wish everyone a wonderful weekend. We got some beautiful sunshine out there today, so let's all try to get some vitamin D before the sun sets in a few hours.
Yes.
But yeah, exactly. So thank you again very much for your time. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for everybody who attended. See you next time.
Bye
Thanks.
now.
Have a good one.
Bye bye.
Bye.